are the flowers that we're going to be making, and I made them out of embroidery floss, but I'm going to go with a little bit larger cotton cord here, so hopefully you can see the steps to make the flower a little bit easier. So to start off, you want to leave a little bit of a tail out to the side, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches or so, and then you're going to make a loop like so. I am left-handed, so I'm going to be working from the left-hand side. So you can see I have my circle around my hand, and I'm going to take now the strand that is attached to the ball of yarn, and I'm going to wrap it just around my hook like so, and go into that circle. And then on the other side, take that same strand and wrap it around the hook, pull it up and through. So now you have 2 strands on your hook, and you're going to just pull that one through, and that is going to now attach you to the circle. All right, now I like to leave the circle quite large while I am working. So our next step is to do 3 double crochets. So wrap around your hook, in through the circle, wrap around your hook, and pull it out. So now you have 3 strands on your hook. Wrap around the cord, go through 2 loops, and now you are left with 2 loops on your hook, and go through, hook over, and pull through, and that's your double crochet. We're going to do that 2 more times. Over, under, over, 3 loops, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And one more time. And that is our first petal of our flower. And now I want to do, in my circle, I am going to do a slip stitch. So in through the circle, around, up, and just pull it through. And now we're going to make another petal. So that becomes another double crochet. Around, in through the circle, around. I have 3 on my hook, go through 2, and go through 2. 2 more times. And then I'm ready for another slip stitch. And you see, as I'm working, I am holding on to this. Now, what I'm trying to attempt here, by leaving my circle large, is to get a strand out this way. So we've got 2 petals here. So now I'm gonna start my 3rd petal. And then the slip stitch. So now I've got 3 petals. Four petals, and you can see I am pushing them back against each other so that I still have room to work here. And I want to continue to work over that long tail of my loop. All right, so here's the 5th petal. And you can see I'm pulling tight and kind of holding everything together in my hands as I work. So go through 2. If you keep a grasp on everything, like here I'm letting go to show you what I'm doing. If you keep a grasp on everything, it works pretty smoothly. The fact that I'm letting go and showing you where I am at is fighting me a little bit. So that's my 2nd. So I just have 1 more to go here. All right, so there's 3. That's my 5th petal. And I just want to do a last slip stitch to hold everything in place. And I'm going to pull that long and actually now take my cord. And I really want this strand to be fairly long. And move these out of the way so you can see what we have. So I have my loop, and this is the tail end of it, and I'm going to go ahead and pull that all the way through and just pull on it a little tight. And here is the tail end from the magic circle, and now I'm going to hold on to the crochet here and pull on that, and you can see that it starts to tighten up, and I'm going to keep pulling and pulling and pulling, and you'll see the flower starts to take shape. I still have a pretty big opening here, so I'm going to take that tail and really grab it and pull tight. Now you don't want to break it, but you can put some weight into it. And then you see here, I finished off that one. I'm going to tuck it to the back. All right, and that's where we're at, ready to add a bead to the center. So that gives us our 5-petaled flower. Now that our flowers are crocheted, I want to add a bead into the center. And so I'm taking the longer of the 2 threads and putting it through my embroidery needle. Now this thread is on the back of the flower, so I'm going to come up to the front of the flower through the center of that circle, or I'm coming into a stitch just kind of off center of the flower. Then I'm going to add in my bead. Sorry, I've been stamping, so I have ink on my fingers. I'm going to go through the bead, and then across to the other side, I'm going to go just off the circle there and to the back. And work on centering and lining things up. And I want the sides to be very, the opening of this bead to be horizontal to the flower. And that looks pretty good. And so now I can come to the back, take my needle off, and I'm going to take the 2 ends of the cord back here and just tie a knot to hold everything in place before we attach to our bracelet. So I'm just trying a double knot in the back to hold that bead in place in the front of our flower. And that's an option. You don't have to add a flower, but if you want to, this is one of the ways you can do so. Here are all 5 of my flowers with the beads secured into the center and the knots tied on the back. And you'll notice that I haven't cut any of the extra tails of floss off yet because I want to use those to attach to the crocheted bracelet. For the bracelet cord, I am once again going to work with a larger cotton cord, so hopefully you can see the pattern a little bit easier. I'm going to take the tail, once again leaving a decent amount, and start with your first slip knot loop. And then we're going to chain 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Now with this chain, you're going to go back into and chain over, and then into the next one and chain over. So now we have 3 on our hook. You're going to take 2 off. It's a little tricky part, and hold on to them so they don't go away. And then you're going to chain over, do a slip stitch here, go into this one, and a slip stitch here, and the next one, and do a slip stitch. So now you have 3 on your hook again. And once again, we're going to take 2 off, hang on to them so they don't go anywhere, and then slip stitch. And we just keep doing this until we get the length that we want for our bracelet. So there I have my 3 again. I'm going to do a few more and then show you how at first it may feel like you're working in a flat piece, but actually when we go to pull on it, it does become a round cord. Okay, so let me just get a few more here so you can begin to see what I'm talking about. So as I work this, you can see here it does look like a flat piece. All right, but if I go to pull on it, you can see that it now curls up on itself. And now I have a round tube-like shape. Oh, I got a hair. So there, as you work, you can see that it now starts to curl and make a tube. All right, I have already finished off my bracelet closure, and I want to show you how to do that. So you have your 2 ends. You're going to cross them over each other. All right, now assume that your crochet is around here. So then I'm going to take my long tail, and in this demo it's not very long at all, but I'm going to take that tail, I'm going to go over the other tail. All right, so I'm going from the inside to the outside, back around, right? And then I'm going to put that tail through that opening. All right, so in a sense, I'm just tying a knot. And I want the end to go the opposite direction of the tail that I'm wrapping it around. So that's just a knot. All right, so once again, around, under, and then you're going to go through that loop, but you want to go in the direction away from the other tail. And you can do this as many times as you need to make your slider. I'm having a hard time grabbing the tail ends here. All right, let's see. All right, well, I think you get, even though I'm unthreading my thread here. All right, so what happens then is, to show you on this one, here I've done about 5 of them. And now this works for my bracelet because I can slide. All right, so if I pull these nice and tight, all right, so I've tied it over towards the end of this tail. Okay, and I worked in the direction away from the tail. It was just overhand knots. But now that those are there, I can now pull on my bracelet and make it larger. All right, so to finish off the ends, I'm just going to add a bead onto the end. And you can decide to make these as long as you want, but you definitely want them long enough that you have enough room to stretch your bracelet open to wear it and then tighten it up on your hand. So I'm going to put my bead on like that. And then all I need to do is at this end is tie a knot. And I don't know if one knot at the end is going to be enough. I may need to tie it a few times just so the bead doesn't slip off. I mean, the other option would be if you have a crimp bead, you could put a crimp at the end here. But the nice thing about using embroidery floss, now let's see, 2 knots. I'm still traveling through the bead. All right, so I just need to keep tying until I get enough that that bead doesn't fall off. But what I was going to say about the embroidery floss is the nice thing about using the embroidery floss is that it'll fray at the end and you'll have like a nice little tassel look. All right, so that's what I'm going to do to finish off my bead. And if I'm worried about it traveling through the knot, now I'm pushing on it pretty hard and it's having a hard time, I can always glue it in place with some super tight glue. So then I have my bracelet crocheted, and now all I need to do is add in my flowers. And the way to do that is I'm going to find the center, and I think since we have 5, I can put 1 in the center, and it just needs to travel through and then just tie a knot and hide the knot inside. So I'm going to cut this down just a little bit so I have an easier amount to work with here. And I want to make them the same length so that I can thread them through my needle at the same time. And then I'm going to take my bracelet, once again find the center, go through, all right, and so I'm pulling those threads through. I'm going to take them off my needle, and I'm going to look at this here, and I'm going to find a thread to go over, and then I'm going to grab one of my red threads and bring it to this side of it. So let's just pull both of them up to the point where I can separate one from the other and leave that one on that side like so. And then I'm just going to tie a knot, overhand knot, and another one. And this thread is, embroidery floss is pretty bright in contrast to the green, so I don't really want to hide it in the center because I think you'll see it. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead, and you could stitch it back through the flower to hide it. Or you can just cut them off, and if you're worried about the ends, of course you could use a little bit of super glue. But I think that what I'm going to do here is find my end through the needle. All right, and it might be too short to stitch, so what I'm going to do is go backwards with my needle and out through the flower. There we go. And trim that end off. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. And I don't know if I have enough again, so I'm just going to stitch from the back of the needle and go out through my flower where it coordinates. And trim that one off. And so there I have my flower attached to my bracelet. And I could leave it as this, or I could put, 2 more on this side and 2 more over here to finish it off.